Hello and welcome to the EURACTIV Agrifood Podcast. I'm Natasha Foote.
I'm Julia Dam.
And I'm Gerardo Fortuna.
And here's your weekly update on all things agriculture and food in the EU from EURACTIV's Agri-Food News team. So this week, it's going to come to as a huge surprise to everyone, because this will be the third time in a row that we talk about, what is it again, Gerardo?
Drum roll.
Drum roll, please.
Should I say something? Food security, of course.
Yeah.
Food
I mean,
security.
in case you're tuning in, you're not actually listening to an old podcast. You are, in fact, listening to the right podcast. We are just talking about the same thing again, but with the different flavors. We've always got different flavors to it, different angles, different.
I think the flavor is always the same.
Well, I mean, yeah. Well, I mean,
you don't have to sell, illusions. It's always the same. No, I'm joking, of course.
Yeah, it's the same. So we're in Groundhog Day. This is what's happening. It's like every day is the same day right now.
It's true that we could say that, for instance, when there was the Common Agricultural Policy discussion, we were always talking about Common Agricultural Policy. Common Agricultural Policy are basically three regulations, super big, with topics ranging from the veggie burger to the third pillar, the social conditionality. I just forgot everything about Common Agricultural Policy because of food security.
It's been erased by the Ukraine war and food security.
Yeah. But so we're gonna talk about food security
again. Yeah, because it's the topic. It's the.
Maybe we should start with another stuff, equally important.
If you want to.
Equally important, even more, I would say. Okay,
right, go on then.
Mark my words, because we're talking about one of the main news of this week in the agri-food bubble. Because on Tuesday, the 5th of April, the Commission presented the proposal to update the Industrial Emissions Directive, or IED.
Whoa, this isn't even food security. Yeah. Whoa.
Doesn't even sound that farmish.
Curveball. Yeah, it doesn't.
Emissions. So what is it and why it'll affect?
You took the question right out of my mouth.
Yeah. Because we're talking about one of the main legislation that help preventing and controlling pollution. Mm-hmm. And in particular is crucial when it comes to guiding the industrial investments. So again, it's about reductions of emissions coming from industrial installations and the largest livestock farms in Europe. This is the novelty, and this is why now it's becoming interesting for farmers too, because under the new rules, for the first time, not only industrial installation, but also the largest cattle, pig, and poultry farms will be gradually covered. The Commission said in the communication that 13% of the European commercial farms will be affected, and also because they are responsible for 60% of the EU livestock emission. This is a very contested and controversial.
But when you say large, I mean, there's a large leeway here. I mean, what are we talking about? What makes a farm large? What are they saying?
This is basically the main point, and actually the bone of contentions, because in the proposal we're talking about farms with 150 livestock units. Mm-hmm. Which is equivalent to 150 adult cows or 375 calves, or 10,000 laying hens, and 500 pigs. Yeah. So, and actually in the first leak that was circulating the weeks before the publication of the proposal, the number was 100 livestock. So it was actually a bigger number of farms were involved, and of course the NGOs complain about the fact that this number was basically was a bit larger because of the push of the farmers' lobby. But in the end, the proposal was actually welcomed by all the environmental NGOs, with, for instance, Greenpeace saying that requiring these giants of industrial livestock farming to obtain a pollution permit is the bare minimum for the EU. However, it's a very normal pattern. NGOs are happy, but with a caveat. The Commission could have been more ambitious. The criticism comes from member states, and in particular from the Farmers Association. There was a very harsh attack by the French Agriculture Minister, Julien de Normandie, and also the current chair of the Agrifish Council, so the gathering of ministers that almost every month, they gathering together, either in Luxembourg or in Brussels. And he said on Twitter that the Commission today adopted a draft directive on industrial emissions that doesn't take into account the reality of our farms. This is, and I'm quoting here again, this is nonsense, and we will fight at council level to bring reason back into this text. So the Normandy was super critical of this proposal.
You could say he's got a lot of beef with it.
Yeah, particularly beef, indeed. But also a bit of chicken. And
he's got chicken with it, doesn't have the same kind of ring though, does it?
Yeah, of course. But again, we're talking about
he wants to chicken out.
No.
Come on, you need to come up with a pun about pork, Gerardo. Go on.
No. This is too much. This is too much for me. Also, because I was speaking, but Julia was already trying to prepare something fun. Yeah.
I was just trying to save you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Julia.
But
he needs it.
So noble.
Copa Cogeca, also the farmers' lobby, for instance, they complained about this 13% mentioned in the proposal, because, for instance, if you put the threshold at 150 livestock units in Germany and Finland, for instance, this is what Copa Cogeca said, means more than 90% of the livestock production. So because they all consider agro-industrial installation. So
that's huge.
Yeah. This is what Copa Cogeca. I haven't verified.
Okay.
Because
So 90% could be penalised for the size of in Germany.
And Finland.
Okay.
German farmers are really unhappy with it too for that reason. That's also the argument they're making.
And also there's the MEP, Irish MEP, another livestock nation. They complain about the potential bureaucratic nightmare for farmers that could come up after this proposal, which is basically, he was mentioning that with a wait time for licenses in Ireland currently at 9 months, and environmental inspections taking place every 1 to 3 years, he basically questioned whether we even have the capacity to deliver what the EU requires. So again, it's just a proposal. There's going to be
a lot of discussion on this.
and again, it's a proposal that it's about industrial emissions. So it involves many different interests. The one around the interest around the agri-food world are one of the main involved in the battle. So there's going to be a long battle ahead. So let's see and stay in touch with us. Not stay in touch with us. Stay tuned.
You can also stay in touch with us if you want.
I'm going to receive some calls from people. Oh, what about the...
That's okay. We welcome that.
Okay, now we can talk about food security.
Oh, thank goodness, because we haven't talked enough about this in the last few weeks.
It's also about food security.
I was
already feeling weird not talking about it.
Yeah, exactly. I was getting some withdrawal symptoms and kind of food security anxiety. But
who wants to start?
I will go. I'll take it. But yeah, as we said at the beginning of the podcast, this is the flavour of the month. It's food security.
But not the flavour of the week. We have a different flavour.
That's a different thing.
Also a different smell of the week.
But yeah, we kicked off this week again talking about food production, the need to up food production. I mean, if you've listened to any of our past podcasts in the last couple of weeks, we've been talking a lot about, is the EU food secure? Do we need to up food production? The Commission's been giving some very mixed signals about this. On the one hand, saying, no, there's no risk of food, being very clear, actually, like reiterating many, many times, no, there's no risk of food insecurity in the EU. At the same time, they are promoting policies and giving different measures and options to member states to up food production. And this week, speaking in front of MEPs in the European Parliament's Agriculture Committee in Strasbourg, the EU Agriculture Commissioner Janusz he repeated again, he stood firm in his convictions that the bloc has to increase food production. And so he was saying that this is actually a key priority, the key priority right now. In fact, his words were, it is simply prudent to support our farmers to produce more food while they can. And basically the reasons he was giving for this is that essentially, you don't know what's going to happen. He was saying you can't predict what's going to happen in the future, and that's where we have to up food production. So it seems like this issue of increasing food production and food security is not going away anytime soon. And he also outlined a number of ways that he wants to help, that the Commission has put forward to help member states achieve this. You can read more about it on my article that I've got in EURACTIV.
This is self-promotion.
It is shameless self-promotion. But I can also give a quick...
once we are here, check also my article on industrial.
No, don't do that. Just mine. But I'll give you a quick summary now, so you don't have to read the whole thing. But essentially, he's pushing hard on member states to change their common agricultural policy, national strategic plans, which we've spoken about many times on this podcast. These plans through which member states will detail how they plan to how to reach the EU's green goals. So he's really encouraging member states to change these to take into account this new geopolitical situation. He was actually saying, these plans were peacetime plans, and now we need wartime plans. It's time for wartime CAP plans. And there was also a few other ways that he was talking about these derogations to environmental measures. So basically, food production.
Can I say something?
But you've got a really stupid look on your face. I know you're going to say something really annoying. What?
Because you were saying, this is EU jargon. No, it's not even EU jargon. It's a journalistic parlance. No, the bloc. The bloc is basically the EU,
Yes, it's
the EU. This is what we call. No. Because there's an association in my mind. Because this is Financial Times jargon, no? Because they use the term bloc. No? Sometimes I have people asking me, well, what does it mean bloc? No? And it's basically the EU, no?
It is.
The bloc. The EU is a bloc.
EU bloc, yeah. The bloc of the EU.
But don't take it for granted. So, a lot of people. You say that certain point, from the bloc, and you were talking about Janusz, and I was thinking about the Jennifer Lopez song, Janusz from the bloc. That's the stupid thing that I want to say.
I'm still Janusz from the block.
Yeah. It's, and I'm
used to make a little, now we make a lot.
I was checking the lyrics, and actually, it's suffer. It's tailored.
It's a shame where we came from.
Oh my god! This is a great song. So but maybe we could also present in the next. Maybe for the 100th episode of the podcast, we
can do a whole song.
The whole song, yeah. And they have some rapped parts, so
we can rap and sing Janusz from the block.
Janusz from the block.
That's quite a promise you just made to our listeners.
No, I'm saying it's an option. We can do it. We have to do something for the 100th episode.
All right. Don't know. I mean,
it's probably in summer, late in summer. Anyway, no. This is just.
No, I think it's sooner than that.
Janusz from the block.
All right, we will get working on that for you.
But the whole lyrics it's perfect for. Anyway, sorry, Julia, you want to say something?
Indeed. So we could take a little look at this week's agenda.
No, I mean on Janusz
on the block. I'm at a loss of words.
I'm joking.
I know.
She's so amazed by your
I
genius.
have nothing to add.
You've blown her away.
Yeah. I know.
I'm silently making plans of how I can leave before the 100th episode to escape. If I'm on holiday
all of
that
our
week.
listeners, they're all like, okay.
You even put it in the picture now, so you can't leave. So
you can't leave, but the listeners can. They've had their warning.
Imagine you can put
have been warned.
Sorry. Go ahead, Julia.
Okay, in an effort to escape this bit, I'll jump to the Agrifish Council this week, so the meeting of agricultural ministers, which was in Luxembourg this week, rather than Brussels. So a bit of a shake-up, talk about the same topics, but meet at a different place. And indeed, again, we have
the very efficient EU system. No one ever calculated the emissions of moving the whole stuff. Probably.
Surely someone has.
Probably someone they calculated the emissions of moving 700 MEPs.
It must be absolutely enormous.
Yeah,
and yet they're okay. No, I was giving some proper fodder there to, but they're gonna penalise the farmers, but they're gonna move 700 MEPs once a month to try. Anyway,
we are leaning toward populism now.
Is the European Parliament big enough to fulfill the minimum amount for the big industrial?
These are the big questions.
Yeah.
These are the questions. Sorry, Julia, we derailed you again.
So the Agrifish shook it up a bit in terms of place to meet, but not in terms of topic, really, because here too we have this kind of Groundhog Day feeling. The ministers did talk again about food security. They had Commissioner Wojciechowski there to talk about the Commission's communication on food security. So a big surprise there. And they also talked about the situation in Ukraine and the effect it has on agriculture markets. And in this bit, they had a guest appearance again from the Ukrainian minister, but the new minister this time was called Mykola Solsky, to talk about the situation in the country on the ground. Maybe you remember, I think we talked about it in the podcast too, that last time when the ministers met last, the Ukrainian agri-minister also appeared, but it was still the previous one who stepped down just a few days later because of health reasons. So this time it was the new one. But there were also some other topics that aren't food security. So here we go. The ministers also talked about avian influenza, so otherwise known as bird flu, which has been wreaking havoc in many European countries. So they talked about the situation and measures to be taken. And they also talked about a favorite topic of Gerardo's, which is geographical indications. So we heard about that a bit last week in the podcast because the Commission presented its proposal last week. So
indeed.
If you want to hear more about that, you can pop back to last week's episode.
No. There's this group within the Agrifish Council.
I thought you were talking about another song.
No. There's this group within the. There's another funny stuff within the Agrifish Council, led by Spain, called Friends of GIs.
Count yourself among their members.
No, apart from this, but it's like Spain. It's the land of big poet Unamuno, Cervantes. They didn't come up with a better name than Friends of GI. But yeah, anyway.
GI Joes.
GI, of course.
So much
this
potential.
Is a joke that only American or English could understand, but
you seem to understand.
I understand because I have a kind of culture.
Because I'm so cultured
on American and English stuff, but
I have a kind of culture. That was a good quote.
Yeah, no, in the sense that
culture.
I remember when it was mentioned this GI Joe stuff, and in another podcast, one of the fewest podcasts that I listen. And I had to Google it. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, Julia. Sorry.
Yeah. So other than
next time. Next time you're allowed to shout at me.
I'm staying calm. It's fine. No, other than the GI Joes, the ministers also talked about a pretty technical, but a pretty important topic. Again, like we heard from Gerardo with the industrial emissions, it's one where you maybe at first sight it's not obvious how it's related to agriculture, but it is, and it's the revision of the EU's land use regulation, which is called the LULUCF regulation in the slang. So this is primarily a file for the climate and environment ministers, but today during the Agrifish Council, the agriculture ministers discussed the agricultural aspects of this file. So to put it into context, the land use regulation is part of the EU's Fit for 55 package, which has this fun name because it's meant to cut the EU's emission by 55% by the year 2030. So this land use reform is all about reducing carbon emissions in the land use sector, or removing carbon emissions. And within this framework, the EU already has a system that keeps track of carbon removals, so removing carbon from the atmosphere by natural structures like forests or peatlands. And the question is now whether the agriculture sector should be included in this and be combined with the forestry sector in this system. So basically to account of carbon removals in this sector. And this is what the Commission has proposed. It has proposed to include agriculture in this system of carbon removals. And the French minister, who we already talked about, Julien de Normandie, who's also the president of the Council of Ministers at the moment, supported this during the discussion. But it's also a contentious topic. And others argued against it or criticized specific points. So some people argued that if you mesh together agriculture and forestry in this way, it could serve to hide the emissions that agriculture has behind the forestry sector, which has a lot of carbon removals because, trees store carbon. And some delegations, for example, Germany, also raised the point that it's actually difficult to have fixed absolute targets for carbon removals in a sector that's all about natural features and where you can't really predict how much carbon will actually be stored because it fluctuates according to the natural conditions. So that's another point that could be difficult. So yeah, the point we're at is that the Commission has proposed this, and the European Parliament and the ministers are discussing it at the moment. And I think we're in store for quite some contentious discussions in the coming time.
And that was all. Thanks, Julia from the blog.
So we actually have some pretty big events coming up this week in France. And to talk about them, we have a French colleague here with us, Hugo Struna. And so we have the first election round in France on this Sunday. And you've come to talk about that a bit.
The first round of the French presidential election. It's a very important moment for us. It's a bit like the Football World Cup, even if this year is less enthusiasm. I don't know why, but...
He's mentioning the World Cup because France actually won the World Cup.
Yes.
So that's not, like I wouldn't say that the Euros because Italy won the Euros.
Italy won everything last year.
No, but actually we won't join the World Cup in Qatar next year. No, this year actually. So
we'll miss you.
Sorry, Hugo. Go ahead.
And I don't know if you know the French system. For your information, there are 2 rounds. The first one on Sunday, April 10th, and the second one on Sunday, April 24th. There are 8 candidates in total. For the moment, Emmanuel Macron, the outgoing president, is in the lead with 27 percent. Second, Marine Le Pen, extreme right, with 23%. Then there are Mélenchon, left-wing candidate, with 17%. Pécresse, right-wing, and Zemmour, far right-wing, both are around 9%. Only the two ones that will be the most voted will go to the second round. Suspense.
Yeah, and I mean, it's we've seen on our website, EURACTIV, that you actually wrote this article where you looked at all the programs, highlighting the agricultural parts of this program. So, what stands out when it comes to the topics touched at European level, like the common agricultural policy, the farm to fork strategy?
Yes, even if it's French elections, the candidates must talking about agriculture at European level, because we receive 9 billion euro per year thanks to the cap.
That's a good amount of money.
Yes. About Emmanuel Macron, he's seen in France as the father of the new cap in France, which will arrive in 2023. His national strategic plan has been well received by the agricultural world. There is no loss of budget and there are ecological aids, etc. But arrived the crisis, COVID, and the war in Ukraine, the government take a productivist turn. It's the case in France, and I think it's in Europe. Independence and food sovereignty have become the keywords of this new policy, to the point to question temporarily, I hope, the European strategy, farm to fork, and certain cap measures, such as the 4% fallow land. And if he is re-elected, Macron will continue on this way, less demanding in terms of ecology. About other candidates, we can note a real political cleavage on farm to fork. The right side candidates are against it. For them, it would be a decrease, and for the nationalists, it represents a risk for France to be less competitive. On the other hand, the same nationalists, Zemmour and Le Pen, are quite satisfied with this national strategic plan, which give more power to state. The only friends of farm to fork are on the left. Mélenchon and Janusz support it, and it doesn't even go far enough for them. Both want to reform the cap in dips for the aid per. They want to stop the aid per hectare and help the organic farming more than what it's done today, etc. There are finally some topics that everyone agrees on: continue to support organic agriculture and regulate imports, and stop import products that do not meet our standards, the famous mirror clauses.
And there's also this question of generational renewal, which I know is a big problem in France, but also in across the rest of Europe as well.
Yes, this is a major challenge. Within a decade in France, all farmers will retire. All the candidates want to make the profession attractive, improve agricultural education, and encourage young people to set up and take over the family farm. The first tool to facilitate the takeover is simply tax exemptions, especially among right-wing politicians. For example, removing inheritance taxes, so that taking over the father's farm is not too expensive. Overall, the right-wing candidates are attached to family farming and to facilitate the transfer of farms by tax exemptions. On the left, they want to use public structures to facilitate access to land. The other tool is to encourage older farmers to leave their place. Mélenchon, left side, and even Pécresse, right, propose to increase farmers' pensions. Valérie Pécresse wants even to increase the pension for widowed farmers' wives. You understand? In any case, this is a real challenge for France in the coming years. France now has less than 400,000 farmers. They were 1.6 million in the early 80s. 7% of employment in 1982 and 1.5% in 2019. If you want to help, you are welcome. Mélenchon is counting a lot the neo farmers to create a new workforce.
Avec plaisir. Avec plaisir.
It's a good offer. I mean,
bienvenue.
I mean, being farmer in France,
Yes.
a small parcel in I don't know.
Anywhere.
No, anywhere.
Oh,
No,
man.
no, anywhere. Oh, now I'm not gonna say the regions that I don't like from France because we have also French listeners. But you know,
And you have the same problem in your countries.
yeah, no, but I mean, it's.
Yeah, but a nice little farm in Ariège would be pretty.
Could be
pretty
worse.
nice. I'm just giving away my favorite region of France.
You had to just say could be worse. Like
Could be worse.
A farming.
I'm not going to say where it could be worse, but it could be worse.
No, you don't-
Very diplomatic of
we
you.
published like 2 years ago this report where actually was stated that the farms in the northern part of Europe could be more attractive because of the climate change, no?
Yeah.
So we should start invest in Finland rather than in France.
Also,
So,
do you remember that they released this thing about rent prices last week? We put it in the Agrifood Brief last week, and the cheapest rent prices were way in the north. So actually,
yeah. So sorry, Mélenchon, but we're actually
sorry, we're going to Sweden.
yeah, we're going to Sweden.
During Macron's campaign, with his desire to ban the sale of eggs from battery chickens, this was to be done by 2022, but it wasn't. All the others want to increase controls on farms, but also the slaughterhouses, which are a huge issue. In France, ritual slaughter without stunning for kosher and halal meat is a very disputed subject. But when you read the programs, everyone is in favor of abolition. Many candidates propose to generalize reversible stunning, a method that make the animal less sensitive to pain before killing it. This method is fully compatible with religious rites, kosher and halal.
How will farmers vote? I don't know if there are some polls.
Usually, farmers tend to vote for the right in France. In this election, the main difference with the general public is the lower voting intentions for Marine Le Pen, extreme right. 11% of farmers versus 23% of general public. The farmers are mostly looking towards Macron and Pécresse, center right and right side. The survey also shows that the two main concerns are one, first, better remuneration for farmers, and two, reduce the normative and administrative restrictions.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're not very keen to the concepts like farm to fork. I'm not that surprised that Macron was not against farm to fork, but open to reconsider if these are the polls in terms of they want better remuneration and reducing the red tape. Okay, thank you, Hugo. Thank you for being with us today.
So, in the iconic words of Lou Reed, for this week's flavour of the week, it's time to take a walk on the wild side.
Okay, just a warning. This is going to be a love letter from Tash to her favorite food stuff. So
not necessarily my favourite, but it's up there, I would say. Something I definitely enjoy.
So we're gonna listen to her monologue.
We had earlier the friends of GIs. I'm the friends of the foragers.
You prefer monologue or stand-up comedy?
Can I not have a funny monologue?
A funny monologue, so a stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
Okay. Not the floor. The stage is yours.
Wow, thank you so much. Okay, well.
Okay, well, we're gonna say something to comment.
All right, what am I talking about this week? Well, spring is here, and so is
spring is here in Brussels.
Just about. Ignoring the fact that I lit a fire last night, so that's so cool.
Last weekend was snowing, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay, well, spring is kind of here, and so is wild garlic. And that's what we're talking about this week for our flavour of the week. And so it's especially prudent this year, actually, because the season started early thanks to some uncharacteristically warm weather. Not in the last week, but do you remember the couple of weeks before? It was very warm. It's confused everyone, including the plants.
We're confused. Yeah.
So the wild garlic's confused as well. We're all confused. It's not a good situation. But anyway, so what is wild garlic? Well, wild garlic is also known as a whole range of fun things like ramsons, wild cow leek, buck rams, or bear's garlic. I feel like you must have a comment about that.
No.
It's a bulbous perennial flowering plant that's a member of the onion family. And it's actually native to Europe and Asia, where it grows in moist and shady woodland. So if you've taken a stroll in the woods around April time, you've almost definitely seen the leaves carpeting the woodland floor. So the plants kind of grow together in these dense clumps, and the leaves are long and thin. And it has these white flowers with the little petals are in a star shape. You can hear. I love.
This is a great description. It's a great description. It's
poetry.
It's poetry. It's
not
even.
You said it was a love letter. It really is.
No, but it's a poem, guys.
Anyway, if you haven't seen it, you've almost certainly smelled it, because the woods around this time of year smell like a French kitchen. Very garlicky.
This is the stand-up part of the...
And that's as funny as it gets, by the way. So if you didn't like that, you're not in for a good ride. But anyway, the best thing about wild garlic is that the entire plant from top to bottom is edible. And not only edible, but it's also delicious. And it's kind of much softer in flavour than the normal garlic bulbs that you get. And it's incredibly versatile. So
now we're going to have the garlic lobby complaining about this statement.
Well, I like both garlics, but I love wild garlic. Anyway, there are all kinds of fun things you can do with wild garlic to add to your food. So you can do I like doing a wild garlic risotto. Some people make wild garlic scones or scones, depending how you want to say it. My personal favourite is to whiz it up into a pesto. So just shove it in with some parmesan, oil, and pine nuts or other nuts. Or make wild garlic salt, and you can have that all year round. So have the fun all the time. And you can also put the flowers on like a little garnish, to garnish the dish. I love an edible flower as well. So
okay, no, there must be edible, of course.
Well, yeah, of course. You don't want to put non-edible things on your food, do you?
Yeah, but you say garnish. You can also garnish with something that you don't eat.
No, but this one's an edible garnish. Even better. Waste not, want not. You know what I mean?
Okay, absolutely.
And it's not only delicious, but it is in fact nutritious. Nutritious, even. Or at least it's thought to be, because wild garlic has been traditionally used throughout Europe as a spring tonic due to its blood purifying properties.
Spring tonic.
I know.
Julia is astonished.
Also thought to lower cholesterol and blood pressure. This thing's magic. And the added bonus that it keeps the vampires away. Okay, that was also funny.
We need the fake laugh, like the comedy.
Like in Friends, yeah.
Like in Friends, another sitcom. I can do the ha. Very good. Okay, go ahead.
Well, also not to mention that, of course, getting out in the fresh air to forage for wild garlic is a great way to connect with nature. Plus, it's one of the easiest ways to go into foraging, because I love foraging, but there are some, if you're going for mushrooms or something, it can be a little bit more risky. Wild garlic's a pretty safe. Well, we'll get onto that in a minute, but it's a fairly safe bet. So it can be some
but risky because of the poison. Okay.
But yeah, you got to know what you're doing. You can't just
No, I thought the act itself was risky.
Well, we're also
you have a bear.
We're also getting. Well, it depends where you are. I
okay.
suppose. We'll also get onto that. But yeah, it can be some real, wholesome family fun. But as you said, just picking up on what you did. Well, you mentioned that there could be some risks. And so, of course, it wouldn't be responsible of us to talk about wild garlic without some words of caution. So if you are going for a garlic picking sesh, do be careful not to confuse it with a very similar looking, but actually poisonous lily of the valley. But they're quite easy to tell apart.
I didn't know about this part.
Yeah.
Are we suggesting people go foraging?
Well, just in case they're interested. I've got to cater for the whole audience. Anyway.
Next time I'm gonna read the old script.
No, but it's a good thing to do. People can go out and enjoy nature and, actually get hands in the soil.
EURACTIV is not responsible for any incidents that could happen after this
No, but
episode.
It's okay because they're actually quite easy to tell apart because the lily of the valley doesn't smell of garlic. So trust your nose.
This is the only threshold. Right?
Well, they also look slightly different. Like the wild garlic, unlike wild garlic, its leaves sprout from a stem. So they look different too. But of course, as always with foraging, if in doubt, leave it out. So if you're not sure, but just have a sniff, and it's very distinctive, the smell. So if it doesn't smell like garlic, it's probably not garlic.
Or you can send a tweet tagging Natasha Food
of you having
at Natasha Food and asking her about any advice.
No, but
she's gonna reply in.
Send pictures.
You can smell through a tweet.
No, but I send pictures of people foraging for wild garlic. It would be fun. But actually, I'll go on to the next point because there's also something else that's very important here because wild garlic picking is actually getting very trendy. I just want to say I was there before it was cool. But anyway, it's getting very trendy. And so it's also very important to remember your countryside code, people. So, be respectful. Don't trample on the woodland and the wildlife if you're trying to find garlic. And also remember that garlic's a wild plant. Its flowers are used by pollinators. So only take the few leaves that you need, but leave plenty to regrow. So it's actually best to, although all of it's edible, it's best to pick the leaves or the flowers and then leave the bulb in the ground so that it can come up again next year.
Yeah, that's true.
So be respectful.
Be kind with other people around you because, as you said, it's a crowded hobby, and also be kind with nature because it's.
Gosh, this is some deep.
I know, and because I was inspired by the poetry.
Are you going to go wild garlic picking?
Now that you say that I can risk my life, probably
You're not going to risk your life. Just trust your senses. No, but okay. But if you don't fancy trying your hand at actually picking the wild garlic yourself because you're lazy like Gerardo, then you can also find it in markets this time of the year. So that's a little bit of a safer bet. You can buy it in the market. It's actually quite expensive to buy in the market. It's better. Yeah, you're better off going to pick it yourself.
No, that's why you actually bringing me wild garlic.
I did bring you wild garlic. Yeah. You remember? You liked it.
Yeah.
There you go. You got Gerardo's endorsement.
And that's all from us this week. This week, the Agrifood Podcast is produced by EURACTIV's Agrifood team, Gerardo Fortuna, Julia Dam, and Natasha Food, with the technical support of Evi Chiori.
And this podcast is also available on all major streaming platforms, including Apple, Amazon, Stitcher, and Spotify.
Be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss the latest agricultural news in the EU. I'm Natasha Foot. Thanks so much for listening and see you next week.